Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, honourable members. I want to welcome you, everyone who has logged into the virtual mini-plenary session. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you, honourable members. Honourable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini-plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitutes a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said in the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the microphones are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and where connectivity permits, connect your video. Members may make use of icons on the on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. And lastly, honourable members, when using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. The first item on the order paper is a subject for discussion in the name of the Honourable Maki on the persistent crisis of illegal migration and its strain on the budgets of the social and security clusters, particularly the Departments of Health, Home Affairs and Correctional Services. The Honourable Maki.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Migration is an inherent feature of human existence. It is not a new phenomenon, nor it is one that will simply cease to occur. South Africa's own history reflects this reality. Since the discovery of gold and diamond in the 1860s, our country has experienced significant inflows of migrants. While South Africa was the last country on the continent to attain its freedom, the dawn of democracy brought with it a marked increase in migration into the country, driven by its improved social, economic, and political climate. Perhaps it is important to reiterate the IFP's position on migration. The IFP firmly supports legal migration, recognizing that skilled workers are essential to growing our economy and advancing development. However, illegal immigration is a crisis. Those who enter our country unlawfully, breach our borders, compromise our national security, and place immense strain on our already fragmented public resources. And this, Honourable Chairperson, is the flux of the IFP's argument that the national discourse has largely centered on the right of illegal immigrants, while the fiscal implications for our country has been illegal to mere footnotes. It is important to note that these concerns are not only shared by millions of South Africans, but also acknowledged by Minister of Finance, who has recognized the growing strain that illegal migrants places on our already burdened fiscals. However, Honourable Chairperson, it has become far too easy for those who focus solely on human rights to dismiss and valid pro-consent as either xenophobic or political motivated. However, it is important to recall that during the Constitutional Assembly, the IFP made a clear and principled submission. The IFP stated that the protection of fundamental freedoms and liberties must be ensured in respect of both citizens and foreigners while they are within the territories of the Republic. However, this applies only to first-generation human rights, such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and protection from unwarranted arrest, search, and seizure. Furthermore, the IFP maintained that the entitlement to second-generation human rights, such as the right to education, work, and medical assistance, should ordinarily be limited to citizens or, in some cases, to permanent residents. The IFP's position was and remains that these socio-economic rights should be reserved for citizens while allowing the legislature the discretion to extend them to residents where appropriate and sustainable. South Africa is facing a crisis of illegal immigration. This is precisely why one of Home Affairs' key commitments and strategic priorities is to conduct at least 40,000 deportations per year of undocumented foreign nationals. However, that target is optimistic at best and insufficient at worst. Even the department, which plays a pivotal role in our national security, can only estimate the number of undocumented migrants in the country. This lack of accurate data not only undermines enforcement, but also weakens our ability to plan, allocate resources, and protect the integrity of our borders. The IFP has consistently highlighted this concern, particularly during the budget vote, when we cautioned against the reduction of the department's funding, given the critical importance of its work to our national security and governance. The Lindela Repatriation Center remains one of the large cost drivers in the department's immigration enforcement program. The daily cost per detainee averaged 200, covering accommodation, meals, and security. Additional expenses for transportation, whether by bus or chartered flights, further escalate these costs. Over the past 3 years, expenditure on deportations has exceeded 423.8 million, placing a significant strain on the department's budget, of which only 5% is allocated to immigration enforcement. This clearly demonstrates the unsustainable financial burden posed by unmanaged illegal migration. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Markley. We now follow the speakers list, and the next speaker is the Honourable Tolo.
Sihlalo kanye namalunga ahloniphekileyo siyakuthakasela ukuthola ithuba lokuba yingxenye yokuhlala kwePhalamende njengoba sicubungula umthela abakufika kuleli ukungena kwabantu bangaphandle eNingizimu Afrika okusemthethweni nokungekho emthethweni kuyinkinga thina ethinta umnotho kanye nenhlala kahle ozombusasa. Yize ukungena kwabantu kwabanye amazwe kuleli kunemiphumela emihle ngokungekho emthethweni. Ukungena ungekho emthethweni kubukeka incindezi enkulu ezintlalweni nasekubuseni kweNingizimu Afrika, ikakhulukazi eminyangweni wasekhaya. Okokuqala, kubalulekile ukuhlanganisa ukungena kwabantu kuleli nemigomo ye-African Union Agenda 2063 ehlose ukudala i-Afrika ebumbene, ethuthukayo nenokuthula elawula izakhamuzi zayo. Inhlangano ka-ANC yakuqonda ukubaluleka kwe-ANC i-Agenda 2063 njengoba kuyinhlangano endala e-Afrika yonke jikelele. Kwamanye amazwe ukubhekene nobunzima obukhulu ukulawula abafohlayo. Lokhu kufaka phakathi njengoba kunenqwaba yabafohlayo, umnyango wezesekhaya uthwala kanzima ukugcina amarekhodi okukhipha izincwadi ezifanele nokuqinisekisa ukuphepha kwemingcele yezwe. Lokhu kwenza kube nzima nokulandelela lapho abahlala kuze kudlule isikhathi noma abangena ngokungemthetho. ngopoto kuvame ukudala izingxabano njengoba abafuduki ngezinye izikhathi bancintisana ngemisebenzi, izindlu kanye nezinsizakalo zomphakathi. Lokhu kudala inzondo phakathi kwabo ukufika nalabo abayinsizwa yokuzimilela kuleli. Kuholela nasekuncintiswaneni kwabo ukufika babamazwe ngamazwe bagcine sebebizana ngamagama anezici. Ukutheleleka abasebenzi abangenazo izincwadi kwezwe kwenza kugcagcele esokeni kubaqashi abangathembekile abaqasha abawufika ukuze baholele amakinati. Lokho kudala ukuthi abakuleli bagcine bengasasebenzi bese kusuka uthuthuva. Ngaphezu kwalokho uhulumeni ulahlekelwa imali yentela njengoba abaningi balaba abafuduki bengabanjelwa imali yentela njengoba besuka beqashwe ngokungemthetho. Abangena ngopoto bavuma ukuqhamuka emazweni anezimpi nesimo esimanzonzo sezepolitiki okuphazamisa ukukhuthazeka ngokugena kwabo kuleli ngokukwandisa izinkinga zokuphepha nokwanda kwamathuba okugwebengu obuhleliwe. Asikuveze malunga ahloniphekile ukuthi inhlangano ye-ANC kuningi esikwenzile kule minyaka engu-30 eyedlule ukulungisa isimo esithinta ukufuduka kwabantu abakwamanye amazwe beza lapha eSouth Africa. Ngonyaka ka-2023 ngo-October kwasungula i-Border Management Authority. Umongameli wezwe uCyril Ramaphosa ucacisile ngesonto eledlule ukuthi abantu abangaphezu kwa-46,000 bafike baphindisiwe emazweni abo ngonyaka odlule. Umsebenzi omuhle loyo owenziwe yi-Border Management Authority. Umnyango wasekhaya unomsebenzi wokuphatha nokulawula ukufuduka eNingizimu Afrika, kodwa amandla awo okubhekana nezinselelo zokufuduka ngokungemthetho anqandwa izingqinamba ezithile. Kube nemibiko eminingi inkohlakalo kubasebenzi bomnyango lapho kuthiwa bagwaza abafohlayo kuze kutholakale izincwadi ezibagunyazayo ukuba kuleli. Lokhu kwehlisa ubuqotho bohlelo lokufuduka futhi kwenza kube nzima ukubhekana nezimbangela eziyinhloko zokufuduka okungekho emthethweni. Ezinye izinhloso zayo ezibalulekile ukuhamba kwaba ngokukhululeka okungahlanganisi izinhlelo nezomnotho waleli gabande. Lo umbono yize uhloniphekile uphazanyiswa ukungena kwabantu ngopoto kuleli. Lokhu kucinezela ingqalasisinda eNingizimu Afrika. Lokhu kuyayikhathaza i-ANC kanye Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. Yize i-Agenda 2063 ikhuthaza umqondo wokungena kubantu ezweni ukuze kutholakale amathuba angcono. Iqiniso ukuthi ukungena kwabantu uma kungalawuleka kucekeleka phansi ingqalasizinda yezwe. ENingizimu Afrika lokhu kusho ukuthi kumele imingcele iqashwe ngeso lokhozi ukuze kungaphazamiseki umnotho noma inhlala kahle yomphakathi. Umnyango wezasekhaya iwona oseqhulwini lokuqinisekisa lokhu. Ukuze sikuqonde kangcono ubunzima bokutheleka kwabantu kuleli ngokungemthetho sidinga ukuthola ukuthi yini le ebasusa emazweni abo ibalethe kuleli. Somlomo ohloniphekile, i-ANC iyaqonda ukuthi okubaxosha emazweni abo singabala izimo zepolitiki, izingxabano kanye nezinhlekelele zemvelo. Inhlangano ka-ANC iyazi ukuthi labo abafuduki kuleli basuke bebalekela ububha, ubudlova noma izinhlekelele zemvelo emazweni abo, ikakhulukazi emazweni angomakhelwane ethu. Umnotho waseNingizimu Afrika ozinzile nohlelekile uyisibungu esidonsa abakufika kuleli bafudukele kuleli ngoba bezofuna amathuba omsebenzi angcono kanti nokufinyelela ezinsizeni zomphakathi ezifana nezibhedlela, imitholampilo nezikole. Lokhu kwenza iNingizimu Afrika ibe newozawoza kwabakufika abangene ngokomthetho nalabo abangena ngopoto. Lokhu kuba yisibunge sabokufika eNingizimu Afrika kugcine kudala izinkinga ikakhulukazi kulabo abafohlayo. Singu-ANC siuqonda kahle lokho futhi sizolana nemiphakathi eminingi abafohlayo abangalandeli imigudu nemithetho benjalo nje babeka ingcindezi eyengeziwe ezinhlelweni zokungena kwabantu eminyangweni wezasekhaya. Ngenxa yalokho isabelo zimali zasekhaya sisheshe siphele ngoba kufanele baqashe abasebenzi abaningi nezinsiza zobuchwepheshe ukuze babhekane nezinselelo zabangena ngopoto. Ukufuduka okungekho emthethweni eNingizimu Afrika kuletha izinselelo eziningi kuhulumeni kanye nezakhamuzi zawo. Umnyango wasekhaya olawulayo ukungena nokuhlala kwabantu. Somlomo ohloniphekile kubalekile ukuqaphela ukuthi ukungena kwabantu kuleli uma kungalawula kahle kungaba nemivuzo emihle. Ukufuduka okusemthethweni kunegalelo ekukhuleni komnotho ngokuhlinzeka ngabasebenzi emikhakheni ebalulekile njengozolimo, ezokwakha kanye nezobuchwepheshe. Sengiphetha Somlomo ohloniphekile kubalekile ukuthi sibuzane ukuthi siya kanjani phambili. Ngo-2022 u-ANC wathatha isinqumo sokuthi kufanele kuba nezinqumo emthethweni elawula abakufika ongungqongqoshe baka-Home Affairs ngaphansi kukahulumeni we-ANC wethula i-white paper on citizenship, immigration and refugee protection. Lo somqulu ukwicabinet njengamanje sikhuluma ungqongqoshe omusha waka-Home Affairs wezwe isibophezelo sokuthi ngaphansi kwe-7 administration le white paper izophasiswa ibe sumthetho. Njenge-portfolio committee ya-Home Affairs sikubeka phambili ukuthi singenelele ukulungisa isimo. Siyazi futhi ukuthi le white paper uma isingumthetho umusha izosishintsha isimo. Siyaqonda ukuthi ngenkathi ukufuduka kudlala indima ebalekile ekuthuthukisweni komphakathi kanye nomnotho eNingizimu Afrika. Ukufotha kuletha izinselelo eNingizimu Afrika wasekhaya. Ngiyabonga sihlalo.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mtolo. The next speaker is the Honourable Nchabaleng.
Thank you, Speaker. The crisis of illegal immigration and its strain on South Africa's social security system. Honourable Speaker and honourable members, more than before, this is the first time as a member from Mkhonto we Sizwe Party and the representative of the people of South Africa to stand and echo the words echoed by the South Africans on the matter that has reached a crisis level in our country. The persistent challenges of illegal immigration is not just a violation of the Constitution, but it is also a strain on the budget of our social and security cluster, such as the Department of Health, Home Affairs, and the Correctional Services, and other related services. South African Constitution, which is the democracy that we value as that values human dignity, equality, and freedom. Yet these values are being tested by a crisis that threatens our sovereignty and drains our limited fiscal resources. Our borders are porous, our system is overstretched, and our laws, consistently enforced, do not ever get enforced. What is mostly saddening is that the GNU even seems to support illegal immigration. A government that fails to protect its citizens is a government that shows that it has betrayed its own people. Therefore, she cannot be trusted. One wonders, why is South Africa not treating illegal immigration as a statutory crime? Anywhere in the world, as a South African, you are expected to abide by the laws of the host country as a foreigner. Yet, here at home, we fail to enforce the same standards. The rule and the double standards. In South Africa, committing a crime is punishable by law. Theft, fraud, and corruption all attract legal consequences as they should. But when it comes to illegal immigration, the same clarity of accountability seems to vanish when someone crosses our border unlawfully, falsifies their documents, or overstays a visa without reporting. That person is breaking our laws. In any other country, such an acts are treated as criminal offenses. If I were to enter any nation without valid documents, Speaker, whether in Europe, Asia, or our neighboring African states, I will be arrested, I will be deported and I will be barred from re-entry. In South Africa, repeated offenders are allowed to come and go as they please, exploiting the system with limited to no consequences. The inconsistency undermines our rule of law and weakens our national authority. We cannot expect citizens to respect laws that even the state fails to enforce. Sovereignty means that a country has the right and the duty to determine who may enter and remain within its borders. On the question of fiscal and institutional strain, the consequences of weak immigration control are not abstract. They are felt daily in our hospitals, in our prisons, and in our government departments. The Department of Health bears one of the heaviest burdens. In border provinces like Limpopo, Mpumalanga, hospitals are overwhelmed by undocumented foreign nationals seeking free medical care, while humanitarian principles demand emergency assistance. The scale of the strain is unsustainable. South African taxpayers fund this service, yet the citizens often face long queues, medicinal shortages, and reduced quality of care. In correctional services, a growing number of inmates are foreign nationals, many of whom entered illegally before committing crimes on our soil. Housing and feeding each inmate cost the state thousands of rands monthly, and this expenditure diverts resources from rehabilitation and infrastructure while our prisons remained overcrowded and underfunded. The Department of Home Affairs, meant to safeguard our borders, has become both gatekeepers and weak link. Corruption, fraudulent documentation, and administrative backlogs have rendered the asylum system dysfunctional. Many economic migrants falsely claim asylum, knowing that the deportation is slow and enforcement minimal. This abuse of process undermines genuine refugees and turns our immigration framework into a revolving door. On government's role, Speaker, while others argue that taking a tough stance on illegal migration contradicts our humanitarian commitment, but compassion cannot replace responsibility. South Africa has one of the most progressive asylum framework on the continent. We have also provided refuge to those fleeing conflict or persecution. But today, a reality is different. Many entering illegally are not escaping war. They are exploiting weak controls and porous borders for economic gain. What is also saddening is that organizations such as the South African Human Rights Commission always take the position of illegal immigration at the expense of South Africans. This raises the question as to whose interest are they saving, if not the rights of South Africans? Criminal syndicates have even found opportunity in this disorder, trafficking people and forging documents and operating home affairs during the hours of the night. Our open door policy, once a symbol of solidarity, has become a magnet of lawbreakers who know there will be no consequences. Necessary reforms are needed. Illegal immigration must be recognized and prosecuted as a statutory offense. Entry without documentation or overstaying visas should carry penalties and swift deportation as in every other sovereign state. The Border Management Authority must be empowered with proper technology, personnel, and coordination to secure our entry points. Home Affairs must undergo urgent modernization, digitization records, integrating biometric system, and eradicating corruption. We must also review our international agreements to ensure neighboring countries take responsibility for their citizens. Cooperation and accountability must replace denial and neglect. In conclusion, Speaker, To conclude, the illegal immigration crisis is not just an immigration issue, it is a national security threat and a fiscal emergency. It drains our health system, clogs our prisons, and weakens the integrity of our state institutions. We cannot allow South Africans to become a playground for repeated offenders and lawbreakers who exploit our hospitality while our citizens suffer unemployment, poverty, and inequality. As MKP, while we believe in extending a hand and courtesy to other countries, but we stand on our stance that it must be through proper legal processes. Immigration must be done through efforts that do not compromise state security and disadvantage our people. The rule of law must be upheld without fear or favor. Illegal immigration is a violation of law, and those who engage in it must face consequences. We must protect our borders and safeguard our resources and reaffirm that South Africa's compassion does not equal to weakness. Let us act now firmly to restore the integrity of our immigration system and the dignity of our nation. I thank you, and Gwaza Mkonto Gwaza.
Thank you, Honourable Nchabileng. The next speaker on the list is the Honourable Ruiz.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. For many on our continent, South Africa represents opportunity, stability, and the promise of a better future. Even more so under the Government of National Unity, where we are recovering from the 9 wasted years of rampant corruption and state capture. But when opportunity is pursued outside the law and the state fails to enforce its own laws, that promise turns to pressure. Pressure on jobs, on hospitals, on schools, and the safety of our communities. Deputy Speaker, let us be clear. Illegal immigration is not a problem of compassion. It is a problem of control. It is a problem of a government that for too long looked the other way, while immigration systems decayed, while the borders were porous, and while the budget of the Department of Home Affairs was stretched beyond breaking point by above-inflation salary increases that left little budget for extra staff, equipment, and systems. The Departments of Health, Home Affairs, and Correctional Services carry much of this burden. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Correctional Services spends millions housing undocumented foreign offenders. And Home Affairs remains understaffed and recovering from years of institutional neglect. But for the first time in a long time, there is a glimmer of hope. Under Minister Leon Schreiber, we are beginning to see a measurable increase in foreign nationals being intercepted at our borders before they enter illegally. The strengthening of the Border Management Authority is progressing steadily. A comprehensive 5-pillar strategy integrates intelligence gathering, visible policing, rapid response, investigations, and interagency coordination. It demonstrates both decisive ministerial leadership and forward planning, with a remarkable 215% increase in the prevention of illegal border crossings in the last festive season. Border security capability is also being enhanced through the deployment of advanced technology. In collaboration with the Department of Rural Development, drones have been introduced at 5 points of entry, including Lebombo, to monitor irregular crossings and smuggling routes. This marks a first for South Africa and underscores the Minister's commitment to modern, technology-driven border management. This contributed to a further 63% increase in the prevention of illegal border crossings during the Easter period. Operation New Broom is taking the important step of internal immigration enforcement in our metros and townships. And this is what it looks like when there's a political will to fix the system. But let's be honest, Minister Schreiber cannot do it alone. He cannot be the only one fighting the crisis of illegal migration. Local government has a critical role, and it is a role too many municipalities are failing to play. Cities are turning a blind eye to the enforcement of bylaws, despite the public outcry. We see spaza shops operating without licenses, and owners' documentation unchecked, unsafe living conditions in backyard dwellings rented out to undocumented foreigners, and undocumented foreign nationals occupying public parks and waterways as squatters without the municipalities enforcing their bylaws. This is not xenophobic rhetoric. This is about upholding the rule of law. You are here as a tourist for a short stay. You are here on a valid work permit or a long-term visa. You're welcome to enjoy the beauty of this wonderful country. Any stay outside the terms of a lawful visa is unlawful. And when municipalities fail to enforce the basic rules, they fail the people of South Africa. Home Affairs is ready and willing to support the operations of metropolitan municipalities and the South African police services. But they are hardly ever called. Why? Because these municipalities profit by blaming shocking service delivery on illegal foreigners. Home Affairs have shown under Minister Schreiber that they are more motivated than ever before. Internal immigration enforcement operations surged from 383 to 1,415 in Q4 of 24-25. This nearly four-fold increase with the same number of officials shows that Minister Schreiber is serious about tackling illegal immigration. But it is starting to get acutely embarrassing when the 4,354 SAPS officers assigned to border protection have still not been transferred to the Border Management Authority 2 years and 7 months after they were supposed to. This leaves the BMA stuck with 672 border law enforcement officers. And to put this in simple terms, imagine Bafana rocking up to play Nigeria, and instead of fielding 11 players, we field 1.5 players. Now, how on earth would you expect them to win? Yet we expect Minister Schreiber to tackle illegal immigration with 672 border officers when we are supposed to have 5,026. There is thus a dangerous trend, the rise of vigilante groups who believe they have the right to police immigration themselves. And let me be absolutely clear, no one is entitled to block services, assault individuals, or take the law into their own hands. When government fails to act, it creates a vacuum. When SAPs refuse to transfer border management units and municipalities refuse to implement bylaws, in that vacuum, anger and fear grow. Illegal immigration becomes politically convenient. It becomes a scapegoat, a cover to claim that the hardships facing poor South Africans are caused by foreigners stealing jobs and services, and not by a municipality that failed to grow the economy and create jobs. And that era must end. The digital identity system being developed under Minister Schreiber will soon see the Department of Home Affairs eliminate fraudulent documents, stop multiple IDs and ghost beneficiaries, and ensure that every person in the country, citizen or foreign national, can be accurately verified. When a person can no longer behind a fake name or a fake document, we restore the foundation of trust between the state and its citizens. But digital identity alone is not enough. It must be backed by municipal enforcement of bylaws, the proper resourcing of the border management, and the urgent transfer of SAPS border units to the BMA, cooperation between the Departments of Health, Correctional Services, and Home Affairs, and a commitment to uphold the rule of law without fear or favor. Deputy Speaker, the Democratic Alliance will continue to exceed expectations with the resources available at Home Affairs, support measures that restore order, and uphold the dignity of every person within our borders. But we will also hold to account those who fail to enforce the law at local level and thereby undermine national progress, because a country that cannot control who enters it cannot protect those who live in it. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Roos. I now invite the Honourable Mohale.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The challenge of illegal immigration demands a clear, principled and effective response from all of us, not an impulsive, politically convenient and xenophobic reaction targeted at African immigrants. Our people are suffering because public services are collapsing under the weight of corruption, mismanagement, and the persistent budget cuts imposed by National Treasury. For the past 5 financial years, the Department of Home Affairs has faced sustained and crippling reduction to its budget. undermining its ability to execute even its most basic mandate of securing the Republic. Over the 2021 medium-term expenditure framework period, the department has enjoyed cuts amounting to 3.2 billion, including 2.4 billion in compensation of employees. These cuts have hollowed out its operational capacity and diminished its ability to process document, manage refugee affairs, or secure ports of entry. The Border Management Authority has also identified a shortfall of 4.3 billion in its medium-term allocation, resulting in key units being understaffed and under-equipped. Out of an approved organizational structure of 11,115 posts, only 2,566 are filled, leaving an alarming 8,549 vacancies. A recent parliamentary oversight visit by the Joint Standing Committee of Defense warned that unless the Border Management Agency receives proper and sustained funding, South Africa's borders will continue to hemorrhage illegal migration, smuggling, trafficking, and other transnational crimes. As we speak, the Border Management Authority, entrusted with securing 4,862 kilometers of our borderline with 6 neighboring countries, is relying only on 127 firearms, 4 rifles, 44 patrol vehicles, 28 motorbikes, and 22 quad bikes. This is not border security. It is setting institutions up for failure. The Department of Correctional Services has also suffered immensely, facing 11 billion in budget cuts over the past 5 years. Its capital budget reflects a troubling shortfall of 222 million, severely limiting critical maintenance, infrastructure upgrade, and security improvement within correctional facilities. Overcrowding, deteriorating infrastructure, and unsafe working conditions have become normalized because the state refuses to invest in its own institutions. At the same time, we have witnessed xenophobic organizations physically blocking access to clinics and hospitals for foreign nationals. Some members of this House have failed to condemn these disgraceful acts because they hope to exploit this hatred for electoral gain. Yet when the Tembisa hospital scandal revealed deep-rooted corruption and looting at the heart of our public health system, none of these organizations matched there. Their anger is selective, misdirected, and ultimately dishonest. The truth is very simple. The reduction in the quality of public services is not caused by illegal immigration. It is the direct result of systematic budget cuts and a failing state incapable of planning, investment, and consequence management. To understand and respond to the challenge of illegal migration, we must examine the push and the pull factors. On the pull side, South Africa remains a relatively attractive destination within the SADC region, offering access to both formal and informal jobs, a comparatively stronger economy, and the perception of better public services. On the push side, economic deprivation, unemployment, political instability, conflict, and climate change in neighboring countries compel people to move. And for as long as the ANC government supports kleptocratic and corrupt regimes in the SADC region, regimes that fail to deliver credible elections, economic growth, or stability, South Africa will continue to receive migrants fleeing from the conditions in those countries. If the state is serious about managing this crisis, it must begin by documenting all foreign nationals currently inside the country, whether they entered legally or not. No institution, not Home Affairs, not the Border Management Agency, not Stats South Africa have credible data on the number of illegal immigrants in the country. Estimates of undocumented migrants range between 2 to 5 million, but these are just guesses. Without accurate data, government cannot plan for schools, clinics, housing, or security. A national documentation and regularization campaign is therefore essential. Home Affairs must lead a biometric community registration drive supported by legal aid and civil society outreach. Proper documentation strengthens law enforcement by enabling authorities to identify those involved in cross-border crime while protecting innocent people from exploitation, harassment, and unlawful detentions. Documenting those who are already here is not a
Honourable Mohale.
It is
Honourable
the
Mohale,
smart.
your time has expired.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Mhlongo.
Thanks and good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson. Our healthcare system is operating under conditions of limited budget, staff shortages, inadequate infrastructure, and increasing demand for services. Yet our public hospitals and clinics are required to provide care to all who present themselves, regardless of legal status, as mandated by the humanitarian and constitutional principles. While we uphold the dignity of every person, we cannot ignore the practical consequences of the unmanaged system. The growing number of undocumented migrants seeking healthcare places additional pressure on facilities that are already struggling to meet the needs of South Africans. Hospitals in border-adjacent provinces are experiencing severe overcrowding, extended waiting times, medicine stock out, and escalating operational cost. This really diverts resources away from citizens who rely solely on the public health system. The IFP reiterates that compassion and human dignity must remain central to our approach. However, compassion cannot replace lawfulness, nor can it justify erosion of state capacity. South Africa must restore order to its borders to protect the integrity and sustainability of its public services. South Africa's correctional facilities are already operating under severe overcrowding, understaffing, and budgetary constraints. Yet, substantial number of inmates within our prison system are undocumented foreign nationals. The incarceration of these individuals not only strain the limited capacity of the facilities, but also diverts resources that should be focused on rehabilitation, skills development, and the reduction of repeat offending amongst the South African inmates. The IFP has continuously emphasized that the challenge of illegal migration is not simply a border issue, it is a national governance crisis. When individuals without legal status commit offenses, the cost of their detention is paid by the South African taxpayers. These are funds that could be directed towards improving our correctional facilities and rehabilitation program. We must be clear. This is not a rejection of human dignity or compassion. The IFP remains firm in advocating that every individual be treated in accordance with the law. However, compassion cannot be used.
My apologies. I just wanted to ask members to mute themselves. Honourable Montenja, you have been unmuted. Please mute yourself. My apologies. Honourable Mhlongo, please proceed.
The security of our nation requires functional borders, efficient immigration enforcement, and structured cooperation with the neighboring states to to process and repatriate offenders. The IFP therefore calls for urgent strengthening of border management, enhanced interdepartmental coordination, faster deportation processes for illegal foreign offenders, and fair resources of correctional services to meet its constitutional mandate. South Africa must act now to protect its institutions, its people, and its sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Mhlongo. The next speaker is the Honourable Matopa.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, honourable members. I rise today on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance to confront a crisis that continues to erode the integrity of our public institutions and the dignity of our citizens. The unchecked and persistent influx of illegal immigration and its direct strain on the budget of our social and security clusters. Honourable members, the communities are terrorized and don't know where to turn to anymore, as our law enforcement has failed them on many occasions. Let us be clear, this is not a debate about humanity. It is a demand for accountability and security and safety. The Department of Health is collapsing under the weight of undocumented patients who arrive without medical histories, without contributions to the system, and without legal status. Our clinics and hospitals are already stretched thin and are forced to divert resources from South African citizens to sustain a parallel, unregulated population. Not to mention the bus accidents that happened where lots of medication was discovered, leaving South Africa. This is not sustainable. It is unjust. The Department of Home Affairs, tasked with safeguarding our borders and managing migration, is overwhelmed. Fraudulent documentation, backlogged asylum claims, and porous border control have turned a constitutional mandate into a bureaucratic nightmare. South Africans wait months for IDs and passports while illegal entrants exploit loopholes and remain unaccounted for. The Department of Correctional Services is housing thousands of undocumented foreign nationals, many of whom have committed crimes on our soil. Every meal, every medical check, every security protocol is funded by South African taxpayers, yet deportation process remains sluggish and reintegration is non-existent. Honourable members, this is not xenophobic. This is a fiscal realization. This is governance. This is justice. Our President, Gayton Mackenzie, said without apology, abahambe, let them go. We are elected to serve South Africans first. We are here to protect the budgets, the dignity, and the future of our people. The Patriotic Alliance therefore calls for a full audit of undocumented individuals assessing public services with quarterly reporting to Parliament, ring-fenced allocations in health, education, and housing for South African citizens, acceleration of deportation protocols for convicted undocumented offenders, reinforced border management, including biometric tracking and community-based intelligence, a national campaign to restore integrity to Home Affairs with zero tolerance for fraud and corruption. Let it be known, the Patriotic Alliance will not be silenced by labels. We will not be distracted by deflection. We stand for sovereignty. We stand for order. We stand for South Africans. The time for soft diplomacy is over. The time for decisive leadership is now. It's enough. Mabahambe. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Denner.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the persistent crisis of illegal immigration is not a theoretical problem. It is a tangible drain on the public purse, specifically crippling the critical budgets of our social and security clusters. The immediate humanitarian consequence is seen in the frontline services, particularly in health. Community clinics, such as those north of Johannesburg, have been battlegrounds. Anti-migrant groups like Operation Dudula are actively picketing hospitals and clinics in provinces provinces like Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, taking the law into their own hands by checking identity cards and preventing non-South Africans from entering. Despite the authorities' knowledge of these actions, they seem unable to prevent the pickets. This campaign insists on the prioritization of South Africans. Migrants, even those with passports and permits, are being turned away when seeking essential care. This situation illustrates a system under pressure. A situation that has been created by poor border management and the lack of political will and ability to stem the flow of illegal foreign nationals into our country over the past 30 years. An extremely unfortunate situation that never should have existed in the first place. South Africa is home to approximately 2.4 million migrants, which constitutes just under 4% of the population, if you can believe our census data. Most of these individuals originate from crowded and overburdened. Our correctional centres are bursting at the seams, fundamentally undermining rehabilitation and public safety. The involvement of illegal foreign nationals in serious organised crimes, including drug trafficking and smuggling, places an unacceptable burden on resources intended for South African citizens. Overcrowding is not just an efficiency problem, it is a profound threat to order and dignity within our correctional environment. Therefore, we welcome the Minister of Correctional Services, Dr. Pieter Groenewald's initiative to explore the possibility of deporting foreign offenders to serve their sentences in their countries of origin. The reality of our porous borders contributes directly to the security threat, allowing easy access into South Africa for those intent on bypassing our legal framework. We must take immediate and decisive action to restore the integrity of the state's functions. Some movement has happened in this direction, but it is not yet enough. We need comprehensive capacitation of our law enforcement agencies and, critically, the Border Management Agency to effectively prevent illegal immigration. Concurrently, all inefficiencies within the Department of Home Affairs should be straightened out to ensure that our legal processes are followed effectively and efficiently. Immigration and travel into and out of South Africa must be accessible and efficient, but strictly within the perimeters of our laws. The failure to control our borders and manage legal immigration creates fertile ground for xenophobia that has long plagued our country and sometimes accompanied by deadly violence. Ultimately, the goal for South Africa must be sustainable economic growth and job creation. We cannot achieve this vital objective, Deputy Speaker, while simultaneously hemorrhaging resources on managing the consequences of uncontrolled migration. To support growth and provide opportunities for our people and those who reside in our country legally, we must curb the crushing financial and social burden created by illegal foreign nationals in our country. This is not simply about border control, it is about sovereign responsibility and future prosperity. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Jen. I'm doing the same as you, Honourable Denner. The next speaker is the Honourable Ngobeni.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I appreciate that. Following from the majority of speakers before me, we believe that the crisis of illegal immigration is not a distant issue. It is a daily lived reality in our clinics, our classrooms, our correctional centers, and many of our poorer communities. It is a crisis that bleeds our budget, breaks our systems, and burdens our citizens, while government looks the other way. Action SA has long raised the alarm, not from hostility, but from accountability and compassion. South Africa is a sovereign nation, and like every democracy in the world, our borders must be managed with both fairness and firmness. Yet today, our borders are porous, our systems are broken, and our people are paying the ultimate price. Let us start with Home Affairs. This department is meant to manage migration. It's now crippled by dysfunction and decay. Officials are expected to run a 21st century system on 20th century tools and 19th century staffing. The result? An ungoverned migration crisis where chaos has become policy and chaos chairperson and honorable members always costs money. The Department of Health feels this strain daily. Hospitals collapsing under infrastructure decay and staff shortages are forced to absorb undocumented migrants who cannot be turned away. Yes, the principle of human dignity must guide us. No one should be denied emergency care, but the state cannot pretend compassion comes without an absolute cost. Provincial health budgets are stretched to breaking point, diverting funds from citizens waiting years for surgery or chronic care. In our correctional centers, the story repeats. Overcrowded, under-resourced prisons now house a growing number of foreign nationals convicted of serious crimes, draining food budgets, rehabilitation programs, and security. Yet this government refuses to tell the nation the truth. How much this costs the taxpayer? Chairperson and also honorable members, this is not a call for xenophobia. It is a call for governance, a call for leadership that respects the rule of law and a government that takes responsibility. The BMA must be properly resourced to secure our borders and restore integrity to our immigration system. When the state fails to act, then citizens will step in, not out of hatred, but out of frustration. When the state fails to prioritize its citizens and enforce the rule of law, citizens must not be blamed for acting when the government has failed. You cannot blame citizens for stepping in when their government has spectacularly failed them. To be clear, illegal migration is not an issue, and the state is wholly to blame. We need a complete overhaul and a national audit of every person within our borders, documented or undocumented, so we know exactly who is here. Only then can we plan, protect, and provide responsible management of our border systems and also our migration systems. South Africa cannot look after the whole world while her own citizens are suffering. Our call for tighter immigration processes must never be manipulated to shame South Africans by labeling it xenophobic. We are demanding order, we are demanding security, and accountability. It cannot be misconstrued as hatred. It is, after all, patriotism. It is not xenophobia to demand a country that works. It is patriotism to defend one that doesn't. The real injustice is not the migrant seeking refuge. It is a government that fails to plan, to enforce its laws, and budget responsibly. South Africans are not intolerant. We are tired of being ignored. And Action SA believes compassion and control can coexist. And we can welcome those who come here legally, but we cannot allow lawlessness to masquerade as compassion. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Nontenja. Honourable Nontenja.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. South Africa, as a leading economy on the African continent, has long been a beacon of hope for many who seek better opportunities. This has made our country an attractive destination for migrants from across the continent, especially from neighboring countries affected by conflict, poverty, and instability. The little that we have is now shared with them. Estimates suggest that there are millions of undocumented migrants currently living in South Africa. This influx not only stretches our resources, but creates significant challenges for our social and security systems. On the social side, our public healthcare system, which is already under immense pressure due to budget constraints, faces further strain from the increasing number of migrants needing medical care. The education system, too, is grappling with overcrowded classrooms, and social services are being forced to divert resources to accommodate the needs of undocumented individuals who are not contributing to the tax base. Furthermore, the strain on public housing and welfare services is creating tensions within communities, as South Africans often feel their own access to services is being undermined by the growing numbers of migrants. The social contract between the state and its citizens is being tested as frustration rise. On the security front, Illegal migration fuels crime, trafficking, and the growth of informal, often criminal economies. Border enforcement agencies already working with limited resources are finding it increasingly difficult to manage the volume of people crossing into the country unlawfully. The financial cost of illegal migration is staggering. Government spending on border security, immigration enforcement, and integration program consumes significant portions of the national budget. This diverts resources away from much-needed investments in infrastructure, job creation, and critical public services that could benefit South African citizens. As we work towards solutions, it is essential that we prioritize the welfare of South Africans while finding humane and sustainable ways to manage migration. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Nontenja. I don't have speakers for the following parties, but I am going to call them, perhaps that a speaker is on the platform. Rise. Bosa, ATM, Honourable Sokoko.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Our correctional facilities, Deputy Speaker, are undergoing tremendous pressure from overcrowding, budget cuts, which have affected resource allocation to various correctional centers. We have a population of just above 150,000 inmates in our correctional centers. And we operate at levels that exceed the design capacity, with some management areas like in the Eastern Cape and Gauteng between 70% and 74% overcrowded, against a targeted 50% baseline anticipated in the annual performance plan. Overcrowding does not only undermine rehabilitation, it strains human and financial resources, and it compromises safety, both of inmates and of correctional officials. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a case in Paulsmoor where inmates have stabbed officials in the Western Cape. A significant and often overlooked factor contributing to this pressure is the incarceration of foreign nationals. According to the DCS report to our portfolio committee, foreign nationals constitute approximately between 8 to 12%. Am I audible, Speaker?
Yes, you are. Please proceed.
Okay. In total, if I have to say, in total, Speaker, we've got about 8,824 sentenced, 3,102 unsentenced illegal migrants, foreign nationals in our facilities. We have noted that a significant portion of the correctional service budget is directed towards the upkeeping of foreign nationals in the form of accommodation, security, nutrition, healthcare, and other stuff. The average cost to maintain incarcerated persons is 463 Rand a day for one inmate. And that goes to 14,000 per month, which translates to 168,000 per annum. The department is spending over 2 billion annually on the incarceration of foreign nationals. This money that could have been otherwise be redirected toward alleviating the persistent challenge of overcrowding, inadequate bed space, and improved infrastructure that is needed in centers. What is even more concerning, Deputy Speaker, is the fact that this annual 2 billion Rand injection on foreign nationals bears no returns. Many of these inmates are not integrated into a long-term reintegration initiatives of centers. Because what will happen, Speaker, is that immediately when they are done, they will have to be deported and going back to their countries. And that is a heavy bill to pay for no guaranteed social investment. Beyond the financial strain, the presence of a large foreign inmate population introduces an administrative complexity. Correctional officials struggle to navigate the issue of language, identity verification, and citizenship confirmation. There is a clear administrative gap between the Department of Home Affairs, DCS, and the embassies as it pertains to incarcerated foreign nationals. Over and above the administrative concern is the safety and security concern, especially in a time where the country is dealing with large scales of organized crime and the possibility of an infiltration of the criminal justice system. The risk of cross-border syndicates being coordinated within our correctional facilities remains a threat. In our view, in the ANC, that the challenge of foreign national overcrowding of our correctional facilities and depleting the already thin budget can be mitigated by the amendment of Section 73 of the Correctional Service Act to allow for the transfer of incarcerated foreign nationals to their countries of origin. Section 73 governs the minimum period of sentence and related matters concerning incarceration. While this section provides for parole, release, and sentence administration, it does not provide an enabling framework for the transfer of foreign national prisoners to their home of countries to serve the remaining sentence there. The absence of such a provision represents a policy and a legislative gap. Many countries, including members of the SADC, as well as European and Asian jurisdictions, have implemented prison transfer agreements. These instruments allow sentenced persons to be transferred to their countries of citizenship, subject to a mutual consent between the states involved, with due regard to human rights and rehabilitation principles. I want to put it to this House that the Peace and Security Cluster is to register and win its within the 7 administration. The review and amendment of Section 73 of Correctional Service Act, it's one of the low-hanging fruits that would assist for us to enable this. DCS continues to bear the full cost and burden of housing thousands of inmates who could, through established diplomatic channels, serve the sentence in correctional centers in their own countries at the expense of their government. We need to lobby the Department of Home Affairs, DECO, to start consultation with countries in the SADC to enter into bilateral agreements for the transfer of incarcerated foreign nationals. Deputy Speaker, we are of the view that a review of Section 73 of the Correctional Service Act would not merely be a banned administrative exercise, but a necessary act of fiscal prudence. We are hopeful that such a review will provide us with a clear legal basis for the negotiations and implementation of transfer agreements and enable cost and/or burden sharing, which might ultimately lead to the reduction of overcrowding in our correctional centers. Deputy Speaker, we believe that by reviewing Section 73, we can introduce a more rational and efficient correctional regime that balances justice, human rights, and fiscal discipline. We cannot continue to invest billions annually with no return. As lawmakers, we must act with the necessary foresight, compassion, pragmatism to ensure we run an efficient administrative and safeguard our budget. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Sokopo. I don't see the next speakers on the platform, but I will check in any case. Al Jamal.
Speaking now. Maybe I just wanted to see
Honorable Buthelezi, please mute your microphone. Thank you. NCC, PAC, UAT, good. Not here. We then go on to the Honorable Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We must address the elephant in the room. While there seems to be a generalized fear and perception that foreign nationals are nothing but a drain on South Africa's resources, the more common reality is one of difficulty in accessing basic services. Services like access to healthcare, including reproductive healthcare and emergency medical treatment. And while xenophobic organizations like Operational Dudula and March on March tried to bar foreign nationals from accessing services like healthcare and basic education, they are also preventing undocumented South Africans from accessing these constitutionally mandated services. Thus, Operational Dudula's indiscriminate discrimination harms both South Africans and foreign nationals legally in the country, while only potentially excluding some irregular immigrants who are guaranteed access to reproductive and emergency medical care in the Constitution, along with everyone else living in South Africa. There is no doubt that illegal immigration does impact the fiscus, but it must be stated that legal migrants contribute substantially to the public purse. They tend to pay more VAT and income tax. And for irregular immigration, the Department of Home Affairs increased their number of illegal immigrants to be deported to 46,898 in 24-25, the highest number of deportations carried out in the last 5 years. It is also important to note that we don't really know how many irregular foreign nationals are in South Africa. In 2022, there were about 3.96 million foreign-born people living in South Africa. This includes all foreign-born people, regardless of their legal status, about 6.3% of the country's 2022 population. Of these foreign nationals, the legal population would have paid taxes, contributed to the micro and macro economies, and possibly provided jobs to South Africans if they were business owners. It is also true that at January this year, there were 12,676 foreign nationals incarcerated and a further 12,771 awaiting trial, 15.87% of the total inmate population of South Africa. In a country where insignificant economic growth has been the order of the day, and nearly a third of people are unemployed, the outrage at spending limited funds on illegal immigrants is understandable. Although the third quarter QLFS shows a decrease in unemployment to 31.9%, 36,000 more people have become discouraged from seeking work, and more than 4 in every 10 young people between the ages of 15 and 34 were not employed in education or training. It is clear that demonizing illegal immigrants as the source of poor service delivery will not solve fundamental problems with service delivery. What will solve this problem is sustained and increasing economic growth that will lead to increased economic participation, the strengthening of our borders and border protection, and the systemic and relentless eradication of corruption and mismanagement. In health, the portfolio that I serve on, failure to implement consequence management has become an annual inclusion in the Auditor General's report. And we see it. Billions looted from Tembisa Hospital, but the masterminds behind Babita Dekron's murder walks free, and the individuals and syndicates first identified by her and then confirmed by the SIU boldly attempt to extend their tentacles to other provinces. Not a single company has been blacklisted. Promised by the Health Minister to remove the entire pressure swing absorption oxygen plant tender from the Independent Development Trust and take it under the Development Bank of South Africa was broken, as the 152 million contracts awarded to Mayeza on-site gas system to install 10 oxygen plants is still being managed by IDT. There is little to no consequence management for mismanagement or looting of funds meant to employ medical staff, buy medicine and maintain equipment, feed patients, clean laundry or remove toxic medical waste. And this is just one department. Economic growth will mean absolutely nothing if looting continues unabated. And who will suffer? South Africans seeking quality services which they are entitled to by the Constitution. At which point we do realize that our limited resources are due to unabated and in some cases it seems sanctioned corruption and mismanagement and years of poor economic policy. We must take stock of how much we spend on illegal immigration. That is undeniable. But half-truths and myths do not address our biggest fiscal limitation, which comes from a lack of political will. Only comprehensive policy implementation will lead to the creation of more jobs, a safer society, and an improved standard of living for all. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Clark. I now invite the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I'm sorry. I was not aware that I was muted. I was talking alone. And honourable members, it is incontestable that immigration is as old as humanity. People migrate from one region to another within countries and more critically from country to country, even across continents. Major world events have prompted even more migration. The Second World War is one of such major events. At the end of the war, of that war, the world was worried about displaced people or migrants who had moved all over Europe especially. The United Nations entered the fray with a view to regularize or control migration. They never meant to encourage illegal migration. To avoid the chaotic situation of clashes between migrants and people in countries where they will have migrated to, UN agencies were formed, like the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee and International Office on Migration. Conventions were adopted, like the United Nations Convention on Refugees of 1951, the United Nations Protocol on Refugees of 1967, and the Organization of African Unity, which is now AU, but the Organization of African Unity Convention of 1969. All these are guiding conditions under which people must cross borders illegally and jump into another country. They include war, national disasters, or persecution. Persecution for political grounds, religious grounds, traditional grounds, or even sexual orientation, which you know has been a problem in some parts of our continent. Back home, we passed legislation as part of the democratic governance after 1994. The Citizenship Act of 1995, the Identification Act of 1997, the Refugee Act of 1998, and the Immigration Act of 2002. Most of these acts were based on the International Convention and our own constitution. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, in all these conventions and protocols and domestic legislation, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, about economic migration. That is where our problem starts. That is where our problem starts. Overwhelming majority of our people in our country who originate from another country are actually economic migrants. They won't qualify to be here, and they won't qualify under the conventions or even under our domestic law. So they choose to be illegal, unfortunately. But once they come into the country, they need education, health, social relief, and even houses. and even jobs and businesses. When concerns are raised by ordinary people about this, debate starts of whether this is xenophobia, Afrophobia, or scapegoating, or the government the state hiding its failures behind migrants. So what are the true facts here? Is South Africa overburdened with economic migrants? I mean, with migrants, especially the illegal ones? I have been listening to the debate. Nobody's denying that. But it also depends who you are listening to. Some NGOs, some media houses, or some organizations will contest this view that South Africa is overburdened. They've always quoted countries that are more overburdened by South Africa. But estimates of people who are here illegally ranges from 5 million to 10 million. That's how difficult it is to reach the correct figure. But what are the true facts? What are the correct facts? Are schools, clinics, and hospitals overburdened? Yes, everybody said so. But I choose to be more scientific by quoting from a constitutional court judgment which was passed in 2018. A constitutional judgment of Mr. Alex Ruta versus the Department of Home Affairs, which was passed by Judge Cameron with unanimous support from all members of the Constitutional Court. I quote section 10 of that. It says here, Mr. Ruta has all along claimed that he's acting not only on his own behalf, but on behalf of the public in terms of section 38B of the Bill of Rights. The issues in his application he raises affect many people. South Africa is by international standards very heavily burdened by asylum seekers. And there is a footnote there. Under the footnote, it says, for instance, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees reported that with close to 107,000 new asylum claims in 2011, South Africa was the top destination of new asylum seekers for fourth successive year. South Africa accounted for almost 1/10 of all individual asylum applications worldwide. Although in 2011, the figure was 69% lower than 2010 of 180,000 individuals. It was twice of what it was in 2006. And it goes on to say between 2006 and 2011, South Africa registered more than 816,000 new asylum applications. Excuse me, Honorary Speaker. This was by far a top destination for asylum seekers over a 6-year period all over the world, close quotes. Now, do we have reliable stats? Because I believe this argument in the Constitutional Court settles the score of whether we are overburdened or not, because it's a judgment. Now, the figures I'm quoting here are for people who have registered, who have made their stay in the country or their entry in the country known. The overwhelming majority are unknown. And do we have reliable stats about that? Unfortunately, as I said, the figures quoted are just estimates. So what needs to be done in the Department of Home Affairs for the past 8 years, we have, in the Department of Health for the past 8 years, we have worked with the CSIR to establish a new system called HPRS, Health Patient Registration System, and then also electronic management system. We worked for 8 years to develop these systems, which are linked to Home Affairs, which we are intending to use in our hospitals, so that when you are registered in a hospital on HPRS, because everybody must register, even those who are not yet patients must register. It gets into Home Affairs, into the National Population Register, or the National Information Immigration System, or the Visa Adjudication System. Those who don't appear there, it means two things. They are either illegal or undocumented South Africans, which I understand are 4 million now. At one stage, there were 8 million. So those who don't have any documentation, they'll be fingerprinted and be given a number. So when they go to another health facility, we'll be knowing about them. So health patient record information system will be very helpful. Now, what are the solutions of other solutions? The BMA, Border Management Authority, the civil registration and vital statistics. Now, I want to come to an issue that I've been avoiding, honorable members. Honestly, this is grossly unfair. Every time honorable member of this house, Honorable Rio, speaks, it's as if Home Affairs starts now, that there's a member of DA in Home Affairs. I was avoiding this because I don't want to be petty. But my worry is a lie told many times will eventually become the truth. Let me remind you, DA voted against BMA. The very BMA they are complaining about it being under-resourced. They voted against it. They did not want it. You can go and check the record. Number two, under the BMA Act, it never said Home Affairs will deal with this problem only. Parliament itself chose 10 ministries who must sit and deal with this issue, and they are a statutory body, and the Minister of Home Affairs will chair it. So I was chairing it, and in 2022, we agreed to use CARA funding to try and help Border Management Authority. And what is CARA, for those who don't know, is Criminal Assets Recovery Account. There's an account in government which holds money from criminal recovery. And we agreed that Border Management Authority must be helped with this money. Unfortunately, after applying for 500 million, we were given only 160. But what have we done with that money? A lot of things were done, honorable members. With that money in 2023, we bought 4 speedboats to patrol the river, Limpopo River and Carleton River in Lesotho. We ordered 8 drones, which I hear are being spoken about as if they are just coming now. We ordered 40 body cameras for corrupt officials at the borders. We ordered 400 firearms because we have just trained 400 new border guards to join the 200 that we originally launched BMA with. We ordered 4 buses. Some of these things, I understand, have not yet arrived, but these are the things we have done. On top of that, we have migrated from HANIS, Home Affairs National Information System. All of you South Africans, you are having a fingerprint and a photo on HANIS. We thought that was enough. We started a new system called ABIS, Automated Biometric Information System, where we are adding 3 other biometrics: facial recognition, iris recognition, and palm print. When I left Home Affairs, we had migrated 53 million South Africans from HANIS to ABIS. So Home Affairs is now ready to implement the facial recognition, which will be very helpful. Lastly, honorable members, Honorable Clark, I just want to correct you, because this was a paper, it's another lie. There is no oxygen project under IDT anymore. It is one newspaper, we asked to correct them, they refused. All the projects have been taken to DBSA. Those DBSA returns are in the Department of Health. And I repeat, there is no project under health to do with oxygen, what you call, which is under IDT. I really need to correct that. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I now invite the Honourable Markey to conclude the debate.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. While the reduction in our debts and the debt servicing cost, as well as the recent creation of jobs, are developments that would ordinarily be cause for celebration, the harsh reality remains that our economy is simply not growing at the pace required to confront the multiple crises facing the country, nor is it expanding sufficiently to enable the government to allocate the necessary resources to departments tasked with delivering essential services to our people. The IFP have proven that illegal immigrants increase the pressure on already overburdened health, welfare, and other social services, as well as departments tasked with issues of safety and correctional services. The truth, Honourable Deputy Chair, is that this crisis will not resolve itself. For too long, we have held on to the false hope that other nations would fix their own problems and that immigrants would eventually return home. But that has not happened. And it is evident that it will not happen anytime soon. Immigrants cannot and will not be integrated into our society. The IFP stand firm. The rule of law must prevail, and South Africa must come first. I thank you, Deputy Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Markey. And with that, it concludes the debate.
Thank you very much. I will be chairing the next session. This is Honourable Douglas. We shall now proceed to the last item in the order paper, which is a subject for discussion in the name of Honourable S Moela on urgent action required to curb the killing of the individuals combating or exposing financial crimes. The Honourable M.S. Moela, you may take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and greetings to all honorable members. The debate on the subject of urgent action required to curb the killing of individuals combating or exposing financial crimes takes place at the time when our country is following the proceedings of both the Ad Hoc Committee of Parliament and the Matlanga Commission investigation allegations which were made by Lieutenant General Mkonazi relating to the challenges facing our law enforcement agencies, including the police, the NPA, the Metro Police, and various individuals accused of participating in or enabling criminal activities. It is not advisable to make comments on the Ad Hoc Committee and the Matlanga Commission at this point in time, as the two processes are still underway. The point to make is that we encourage any individual or institutions to cooperate with the two investigations to assist our country to unearth the rot, if it exists, within our criminal justice system, with the view of correcting the wrongs that may be happening and strengthen our criminal justice system to fight crime. Financial crimes are part and parcel of the crime of corruption that our country continues to face and fight. This debate requires us to reflect on the attacks on those whistleblowers who expose corrupt activities, to assess the existing legislative frameworks on the protection of whistleblowers and provide proposals of what is to be done going forward to protect the whistleblowers. Our view as the ANC is that corruption remains a worldwide phenomenon, and there are many lessons to be learned on the success and failures in tackling corruption. A critical element is the strengthening of the institutions in the criminal justice system. Corruption undermines our effort as a country to meaningfully utilize our resources, especially financial resources, to address the triple challenges that faces our people. The challenges of unemployment, inequality, poverty, as well as crime. Corruption manifests itself in so many different ways, including the ballooning of prices on the cost of service delivery through outsourcing, undermining procedures of fair state procurement, as well as provision of substandard services to the state in order to maximize profits by service providers. While we agree that some of the players in the web of corruption may include some politicians, it is important to highlight that the enablers of corruption are some of the public servants who are responsible for public procurement. This is to emphasize the point observed in the Zondo Commission on the enablers of corruption within the state. All of us, including public servants, have an obligation not to participate in corrupt activities, and that we have a duty to report corrupt activities as they occur. Honorable members, to mitigate against corruption requires a professional and ethical public servant, including those who are holding political offices. By professional and ethical public servants, we mean that all actions by public servants on state procurement should be done within the parameters of the law. Procurement processes should be legal, transparent, and fair to everyone who participates in such procurement. An ethical and professional public servant has an obligation to say no to any or companies that recruit them to participate in corrupt activities. There are many men and women of our country who stand on the right side of history by refusing to be recruited or be coerced into participating in corrupt activities or facilitating corrupt activities. One example of such brave honorable members is a professional and ethical and loyal civil servant, including Dr. Themba Maseko, who tells a story of how he blew a whistle on those who wanted to sell the soul of our country for personal interest in his book titled For My Country. Themba, as his name suggests, a man who can be trusted, stood firm and in conviction that for his country, he rather enjoys emotional and personal suffering than being an enabler of corrupt activities. Writing a forehead for Themba Maseko's book, Dr. Sidney Mufumadi characterizes Themba Maseko as a part of cohort of a generation of civil servants who put our people ahead of their personal interests. Themba Maseko is not the only one and should not be the only one. There are many patriots who paid an absolute price in the name of our people and our country against corruption, such as the late Ms. Papita Deokoran. In this regard, we salute the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation for having hosted a symposium in honor of Papita Deokoran to tackle the entrenched corruption threatening Gauteng's health system. The memo never to be complicit with corruption. The National Development Plan identifies some of the weaknesses that exist within our legislative framework regarding the protection of whistleblowers. The NDP proposes that a review of the Protected Disclosures Act, if further says that this review should consider expanding the scope of whistleblower protection outside the limits of occupational detriment, permit disclosure to bodies other than the public protector and the auditor general, and strengthen measures to ensure the security of whistleblowers. Consistent with the NDP, the Zondo Commission of Inquiry on Allegation of State Capture made recommendations that are aimed at strengthening our legislative framework to protect whistleblowers. The Zondo Commission report says that the government should introduce legislation or amend existing legislation to ensure that any person disclosing information to reveal corruption, fraud, or undue influence in public procurement activity be accorded the protection stipulated in Article 32, subsection 2 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, identifying the inspectorate of the agency as the correct channel for the making of such disclosure. In 2023, honorable members, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development released a discussion paper titled Discussion Document on Proposed Reforms for the Whistleblower Protection Regime in South Africa. The paper was aimed at inviting public engagement on measures to protect whistleblowers in South Africa. The discussion document looked at whistleblower protection from the point of view of the legal regime governing protected disclosures in South Africa and other jurisdictions. Some of the salient observations made in the discussion paper include that South Africa has a legal framework with regards to the protection of whistleblowers. However, the question of whether whistleblowers in South Africa are appropriately and adequately protected in terms of the provisions of the relevant legislation should remain. Further, that it appears that different legislation has different levels of protection towards whistleblowers. It is further appears that different legislation targets certain types of information to be disclosed. The Protected Disclosure Act, which is the primary legislation on whistleblower protection, is centered around the employer-employee relationship, which triggers the Labor Relations Act. Honorable members and Honorable Chair, our way forward as Parliament in ensuring the protection of whistleblowers in our country in the fight against corruption is to answer the questions put in the discussion document released by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development on the need for adequate and appropriate protection of whistleblowers. Yes, I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Moela. The next speaker will be from MK, Honorable Dr. Litchfield Chabalala. Please take the floor. Thank you.
Chair, I rise today on behalf of MK Party to confront an issue that costs life in South Africa. It asks of an ethical and moral citizen who is engaged in a daily struggle to earn an honest living, to choose between joining the war on crime for the restoration of law and order, safety and security, and to be protected while doing that, or maybe even to be awarded while they are at it, because we do have national colors for outstanding citizens. Or listen to the flip side. to be gunned down in the street like a stray dog just because they are on the side of the truth. Between 2000 and 2001 alone, it is reported that 1,971 assassinations took place in South Africa. Many of them were whistleblowers. They have names and their faces. Pamela Mabini, killed outside her home in Gqeberha for exposing heinous crimes like rape and human trafficking. Athol Williams, Jimmy Mhlala, Martha Ngoye, Cynthia Stimpel. These are people who have faces, who have families, who have dreams, who merely chose to stand on the side of the truth. While at MK we bemoan the loss of life, we also bemoan the death of truth along with the death of whistleblowers. We bemoan the loss of truth because it is in the loss of truth that henchmen hired by criminals find reason to think that any whistleblower is an end that they can squash, that any whistleblower is a cancer that must be taken out. It is in the death of truth and lack of retribution for the killing of whistleblowers that the criminal and the henchmen gain strength. At this rate, truth is losing, along with the whistleblower, while the criminal and the henchmen are gaining popularity. Within this climate, mistruths are born, because we all know that while that criminal and the henchmen are winning, it is a false win. It is based on robbing the truth. In these mistruths, we come to see the animal farm, for those who have read the book, play out every day under our noses in this country. It is within that climate of inequality where I, as a lesser animal, is asked by First National Bank to go and clear $50 in my account and declare its origin, while there's another citizen to whom $4 million stashed under a sofa, unlinked to their tax number like me at FNB, can just go on unpunished and the judiciary says it's okay. If I was a criminal in this country and I looked at this inequality in terms of application of the law, I would also be emboldened. Beyond these mistruths for criminals, go on to even alter arithmetic. We are told, and we have heard even today, about 9 wasted years. But if an honest citizen, a whistleblower, will tell you that they have lived 31 wasted years in this country, for it is in the last 31 years that we have been ushered into this gangster's paradise, where you have to sacrifice your life to stand for the truth. It is for this reason that for us in MK, we say that there is no difference between this internal criminality that we've been ushered to, the gangster's paradise, and the criminality that is committed by transnational corporations, all financial crimes. They have the same effect. They weaken the rand, they lead to loss of jobs, they lead to insecurity, they lead to citizen mistrust of the government. That is why for us, being taken out of the grey list, while it was a celebration because it eases the suffering on the ordinary citizen, but it also tells us that it's just a starting line. We need to strengthen our financial regulations. We need to crack down on criminality. We need to strengthen whistleblower protection. We need to create safe reporting channels. Why is standing with the truth being a death sentence in this country? We need to come to a point where we change the culture, where we stop celebrating easy money, where we celebrate honest work. We need to restore the credibility of the public service, where it has become a quick buck, not an honest job, where the public service has been reduced to a job. Public service servants That's why they were called servants. They have never been employees, they are servants. Therefore, this culture of the killing of whistleblowers that has emboldened the criminal and the henchmen together says to us as MKP that we have lost the script as a country, that the last 30 years has ushered us into a culture of lack of accountability, a culture that even makes criminals think that it is wrong for a whistleblower to call them out. It is wrong for a whistleblower to say, I can witness against you. Therefore, having said that, as MKP, we are saying, here we are, this is us. We stand for that accountability. We stand on the side of whistleblowers. We stand on the side of the truth. For there is no country that can be run with mistruths. Because mistruths, as somebody has just said, becomes a lie that is told so repeatedly that it becomes the truth. We are deceiving our people to tell them that the last 31 years were safe except for the 9 years, that we are now living in safety. But the names I have just quoted here are names of people who were killed outside of the 9 years that everybody pins the wasted years on. So I think I want to conclude, Honorable Chair, by just calling everyone to say, support us, support MK. We stand on the side of whistleblowers. We stand on the side of the truth, for we know that only truth shall liberate us. You will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Yithi laba umkhonto kwazayo, umkhonto ogijimayo. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker will be from the ANC, Honourable the Acting Minister of Police. You may proceed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and Honourable Members. Am I audible?
Yes, you are fully audible. You may go ahead, Minister.
Thank you. We are indeed at a critical juncture in our democratic journey, one that demands renewed commitment to the values of transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. Whistleblowers who expose corruption and commercial crime perform a vital public service to our society. They shine the light on dark places to disrupt criminal and corrupt networks that steal public funds. In doing so, they serve to protect the integrity of our institutions and the promise of our Constitution, as well as the well-being of our people. Yet too often, as we heard from the previous speaker, those who blow the whistle do so.
Honourable Minister, could I just ask you to hold for a second? I see there's a hand. What is your point of order, Honourable Reddy?
Thank you very much, Honourable Acting Speaker. Will the Minister be prepared to take a question? Thank you.
Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Yes, I am.
Okay, he has acknowledged. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. My question is, given the exposure in the Madlanga Commission and ad hoc committee, where police are involved in various sorts of skullduggery, how can we then ensure that whistleblowers can be safe going to the police to report matters? Thank you.
Well, that certainly is an important issue. I think the Madlanga Commission is going to cast a light on many of the issues that we confront. It will make recommendations that need to be implemented, and it may well be that it will also address the issues concerning whistleblowing. Although there is legislation that is in the pipeline to strengthen our whistleblowing laws. Can I proceed?
Thank you very much. Please proceed, Honourable Minister.
Thank you. The whistleblowers experience various forms of retaliation, bullying, harassment, intimidation, the prospect of a loss of livelihood, and even, and increasingly, assassination. It is for this reason that The protection of whistleblowers is essential in the fight against crime and corruption. What are some of the underlying factors compelling enhanced protection? Firstly, the scale and sophistication of corruption and commercial crime in South Africa today are such that internal reporting and public disclosures are often the primary means by which wrongdoing is being uncovered. Corrupt agents exploit weaknesses in governance arrangements and are able to use complex financial instruments that move stolen or fraudulently obtained funds across borders. Detecting and proving this type of corrupt or criminal conduct often depends on people with detailed insider knowledge. Insiders like employees, accountants, suppliers, or sometimes even outsiders, such as professionals tasked with ensuring financial probity or investigating wrongdoing, such as auditors and lawyers. When potential whistleblowers see others punished or harmed for speaking out, the incentive to remain silent grows, allowing the cancer of corruption to grow. To break this cycle, South Africa must protect whistleblowers. Whistleblowing is not only a matter of private choice, it is a public service. Exposing corruption and commercial crime protects taxpayers, boosts essential services, supports legitimate businesses, saves jobs, and enhances investor confidence. In a country still contending with deep socioeconomic challenges, every rand stolen through corrupt schemes is a rand not spent on job creation, health, education, public safety, or community development. So protecting whistleblowers is an investment in our country's and our people's well-being. What are the gaps in the existing frameworks? South Africa has made important strides, such as the Protected Disclosures Act and various policies that recognize the important role of internal reporting, but significant gaps
Chair,
remain.
can the Minister take a question?
Honourable Minister?
Yes, I'll take a question.
Could you, now just before you go ahead, please do realize that your answers cut into your time in terms of your speech. So the answers that you take, I'm going to ask for Honourable Basson. Your hand was first. What is your point of order?
Can I?
Just hold on, Honourable Minister.
Okay. Well, in that event, can I then be allowed to proceed?
Sure, but I have 2 points of 2 hands raised. I just need to take that first, Honourable Minister. Honourable Basson, your hand is up first. What is your point of order?
Thank you, Chairperson. I was wondering if the Minister is willing to take a question.
Honourable Minister, are you willing to take a question?
Well, you've just pointed out that that is at the expense of the short time allocated to me, so perhaps I shouldn't.
Okay, no problem. Can I just ask for the next member, Honourable Mkalipi, what is your point of order?
No, the Minister agreed to take a question until you interfere, Chair. You don't do that. The Minister agreed. Can I go on with my question? Minister, there's a police station that is outstanding.
I apologize, member. It has been pointed out
Minister,
to me.
When can you go and build that police station? Because people are dying like
flies. Can I get order, please? Honourable member, can we have order? The minister had changed his mind. He's a new member.
No, because of you, Chair. He agreed, and then you alerted him of those things. It's very important. Minister, when can you visit Amaoti? Because people are dying like flies at Amaoti.
I'm aware, member, and so are you, that you're asking these questions at the expense of the little time allocated.
No, instead of explaining, just answer. When are you coming to Amaoti? People are dying like flies.
Please order, please, Honourable Mkalipi. Please order. The minister has now indicated that he's not willing to take a question. He is allowed to go ahead with his speech. Thank you very much. Honourable Minister,
but
please
Chair, you must
protecting
the executive.
No, I'm not protecting anybody. I am making everybody aware of the rules, especially new members who aren't
Nobody
aware of
is
the rules.
willing to take a question
Thank you.
until
It's not a
you
dialogue, Honourable
interfere.
Member. Please raise it with the table if you have an issue. Thank you. Honourable Minister, please continue.
So, thank you, Chairperson, for your protection. I was indicating that there are gaps in the existing legislative framework, which is under the attention of the Department of Justice. And my information is that additional draft legislation has been prepared. Then there are issues relating to enforcement and implementation. Legislative change means little without consistent enforcement, where there are delays in investigations, inadequate witness protection, and weak coordination between agencies. Law enforcement and accountability needs dedicated, specialized capacity to protect the witnesses who can assist them with unraveling corrupt schemes. This includes ensuring that whistleblowers can report information securely or anonymously, and importantly, protect those who may face potentially devastating career and reputational reprisals. We also have to deal with organizational cultures which often are not conducive to whistleblowers blowing the whistle. Various inquiries and reports have provided invaluable lessons that can guide our approach to better protection. The collapse of VBS Mutual Bank exposed how collusive networks between individuals and private actors can steal funds from institutions that provide important services to our people. Crucially, whistleblowers and internal auditors played critical roles in exposing the scale of looting. Yet the aftermath of this disgraceful saga demonstrated weaknesses in the protection of those who spoke out and delays in prosecutorial and asset recovery processes. While there's still a long way to go with the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, it has already demonstrated the critical importance of insiders who are able to expose those who are in cahoots with powerful actors involved in organized crime. And the National Anti-Corruption Council, which I had the privilege to chair, has also made some important recommendations with respect to whistleblowing, which are now under consideration in the executive. These inquiries highlight several clear imperatives. Firstly, whistleblower protection must be comprehensive, covering confidentiality, protection from dismissal and victimization, access to legal remedies, and where necessary, proactive responses from the police, to placement in our National Witness Protection Program. Second, institutions must respond swiftly and effectively to disclosures. This involves credible investigations, prompt referral to relevant law enforcement authorities, and transparent reporting on outcomes. Third, there must be improved coordination between law enforcement, regulatory bodies, oversight institutions, and the prosecutorial service to prevent gaps that perpetrators exploit to avoid being held accountable. And fourth, asset recovery and civil remedies must be prioritized. In conclusion, then, whistleblowers are indispensable partners in our fight against crime and corruption. Their courage exposes wrongdoing that undermines development and corrodes public trust. Our duty as custodians of the rule of law and protectors of the well-being of our people is, in fact, to protect whistleblowers, respond effectively to their disclosures, and ensure that justice prevails. Let us build a system where speaking truth to power is met with protection, not punishment and victimization, where disclosures trigger action, not indifference, and where South Africans can trust their institutions and their leaders to uphold the public interest. Government, parliament, law enforcement agencies, oversight bodies, business leaders, trade unions, and civil society in general must work together to achieve this. Together we can create an environment that protects whistleblowers, disrupts criminal networks, and restores the integrity of our public and private institutions. I thank you all for this debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable the Minister of Police. Next will be the Democratic Alliance. Honourable Cameron, please take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, every time someone in this country stands up to expose corruption, they risk to be silenced, not by any form of bureaucracy, but rather by bullets. Corruption in South Africa is too often spoken about in the language of audits, compliance frameworks, and procurement policies, but that language misses the real point. Corruption here is not abstract, it's about people, and not just numbers. People with families, careers, and futures. People who far too often pay with their lives for choosing integrity over silence. As already mentioned, in 2021, Babita Deokaran was assassinated outside her home after exposing irregular PPE tenders in the Gauteng Health Department worth over 850 million rand. In 2023, Kluto Murray and his son Thomas, forensic liquidators tracing state capture money flows, were ambushed and killed on the N1 near Midrand. In KZN, Sindiso Magakwa was gunned down after uncovering tender fraud in his municipality. And in Mpumalanga, Themba Dlamini, a municipal CFO, was murdered for refusing to authorize corrupt payments. In the Eastern Cape, Andile Andries, the supply chain manager, met the same fate after flagging dodgy road contracts. These deaths are not random. They are deliberate warnings that integrity in South Africa carries a mortal price. But here's the questions that we should ask. Why is it that the Special Investigations Unit can act swiftly, freezing bank accounts, tracing stolen funds, securing preservation orders, while the Hawks, often crime intelligence, and even SAPS detectives remain paralyzed by dysfunction? How can the SIU move from investigation to court in weeks, while criminal dockets on the same cases vanish into the void for years? Why does civil recovery work, but criminal justice does not? That is the heart of South Africa's law enforcement failure. The machinery of accountability has been captured by fear, factionalism, and incompetence. And while the honest are punished, the corrupt are protected, sometimes by those in uniform. The DA has said it before, and we will keep saying it, that without protection for those who expose corruption, we will lose the very people who keep this country's democracy alive. The time for condolences is over and the time for convictions has come. We are calling for 5 urgent reforms to protect those who protect the truth. 1, a specialized task team under the Hawks dedicated solely to investigate assassinations and intimidation of whistleblowers, auditors, and financial officers. 2, prosecution-led investigations in all major corruption and assassination cases, pairing Hawks and MPA from day one. 3, amend the Witness Protection Act to include preventative protection relocation, safe housing, and digital shielding before threats become murders. 4, ring-fenced funding for digital forensics, evidence preservation, and secure whistleblower hotlines that bypass compromised police stations. A whistleblower safety report to Parliament each year, tracking every assassination, every threat, and every stalled case is part of number 5. Because what SAPS doesn't measure, SAPS doesn't manage. But these reforms will mean nothing if leadership remains absent. Under this government, the Hawks are under-resourced, IPID is underfunded, and crime intelligence is so compromised it cannot even protect its own members. Live in comfort while those who expose them are buried without honor speeches, but not justice. It is not enough for ministers to issue condolences. We need convictions. Chair, the fight against corruption is not an audit exercise. It is a human struggle for dignity, for safety, and for justice. Every murdered whistleblower, every silenced investigator, and every compromised cop is a wound on our democracy. So today, let us say their names again. Babita Deokaran, Kluter and Thomas Murray, Sindiso Magakwa, Themba Dlamini, Andile Andries, and every South African who chose integrity over fear. They stood for the idea that public service must mean service to the public, not to a faction, not to a funder, and not to a fear. Their courage demands consequence, because if we cannot protect those who expose corruption, we cannot claim to fight it. If we cannot jail those who kill them, we cannot claim to be a democracy. The DA will keep fighting for South Africa where truth-tellers live to see justice done, where investigators do not work in fear, and where the only people who should be afraid are the corrupt and their killers. This is South Africa we are fighting for. And that is the fight we cannot afford to lose. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Cameron. The next speaker will be from the EFF, Honourable Khoza. Thank you, Honourable Member. You may take the floor. Honourable Khoza from the EFF, are you there?
Chairperson, sorry, I was on mute. Chairperson, today almost everyone here knows of Babita Dekaran, a selfless public servant working for the Department of Health in Gauteng. She was mercilessly killed in 2022 for uncovering and trying to stop massive corruption relating to Tembisa Hospital. In June this year, Mr. Mpho Mafole, the City of Ekurhulene's Group Divisional Head of Corporate and Forensic Audit, was assassinated. He had only been in the position for 3 months and 3 days before his murder. He had submitted a report detailing irregularities in a 1.8 billion chemical toilet contract awarded by the municipality. His report flagged potential illegal expenditure and legal challenges. On the 7th of March this year, Pamela Mabini, a community activist and whistleblower, was killed outside his home in KwaZakhele, Gqeberha, in South Africa, Eastern Cape Province. She too was a whistleblower who was instrumental in the prosecution of that fake pastor, Omotoso. Chairperson, these are just recent examples highlighted to demonstrate just how precarious it is to be seen to be against corruption in this country. These patriots follow a long line of many others who, through their unbending commitment to ethical leadership, paid the ultimate price. Others include Cindy Somakaka, former ANC Youth League Secretary General, gunned down in Zimkhulu for opposing the looting of public funds. Jimmy Muhlala, the Speaker of Mbombela Municipality in Mpumalanga, was murdered in front of his home after he exposed tender irregularities related to the construction of the Mbombela Stadium for the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Mos Pagoa, a councillor at Bujanala District Municipality, was also shot in front of his home. He and a colleague compiled a dossier that exposed corruption in Bujanala Platinum District Municipality. In all these instances, the state has been caught with its pants down, unable to protect those who bring information on corruption and abuse of process. And in many instances, it has been actors within the state who facilitate the silencing of ethical voices, even with legislative interventions, such as Protected Disclosures Amendment Act of 2017, aimed at protecting whistleblowers. Without a willing and uncaptured state, the lives of those fighting against the hollowing out of our state is vulnerable. Recent reports reveal that South Africa has been removed from the Financial Action Task Force, the grey list, signaling an improvement in our anti-money laundering posture. This is commendable, but it does not erase the fact that far too many South Africans continue to pay the ultimate price for daring to speak the truth. The Protected Disclosures Act must be reinforced to guarantee that those who expose graft, maladministration, or the theft of state resources together with their families are safe, complete with psychosocial support, relocation where necessary, and precautionary priority. Silence should no longer be a safe option for criminals. Dedicated courts for financial crime must be created. Corruption and corporate crime must no longer meander through overloaded roles. They must face expeditious, specialized tribunal that delivers justice visible to the public. Impunity must be replaced with certainty of liability. Asset recovery and restitution mechanism must be vigorously implemented. Wealth stolen from the people must not vanish into shelf companies or offshore trusts. Restitution must trace stolen funds back into social economic programs for the poor and marginalized, the very people overlooked by the current order. A national culture of accountability must be rekindled. This means zero tolerance for politicians, officials or business elites who obstruct justice, intimidate whistleblowers, or collude with financial crime. It means that no one is above the law, not ministers, not business moguls, not state-captured chiefs. Honorable members, let us not delude ourselves. Corruption is not simply a betrayal of public funds. It is a betrayal of human person. When funds meant for water and electricity feed into greedy bank accounts, when hospitals cannot treat patients because of stolen gadgets, when children's future are mortgaged to pay the executive's praise, we are complicit unless we act. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kosa. The next speaker will be from the IFP, Honorable Hadebe. You may take the seat. Thank you. You may take the floor.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. The Inkatha Freedom Party rises today with grave concern over the increasing and deeply disturbing pattern of violence and assassinations targeting individuals who have taken a stand against corruption and financial crime in our republic. These are whistleblowers, auditors, investigators, journalists, and public servants, citizens who have chosen principle over profit, service over silence. Their courage has been repaid with intimidation, persecution, and far too often with their lives. This is not just a moral crisis, it is a constitutional one. When those who expose wrongdoing are killed, it is the rule of law itself that is under attack. It is the public's trust that is assassinated alongside them. We must confront a painful truth. South Africa has become a dangerous place for integrity. The murders of whistleblowers such as Babita Deokaran, who courageously exposed corruption in the Gauteng Department of Health, remind us that our anti-corruption framework is riddled with gaps. Promises of protection ring hollow when justice for these killings remain elusive. The message this sends is devastating, that the price of honesty is death, and that the state cannot or will not protect those who defend it. The IFP asserts that urgent and measurable action is required. We cannot continue to be reactive only after blood is spilled. We must strengthen and institutionalize proactive mechanisms that deter, protect, and prosecute. Firstly, the IFP calls for the immediate operationalization of a whistleblower protection agency, independent, well-resourced, and insulated from political interference. This body must offer physical protection, relocation, and anonymity where necessary. Current frameworks under the Protected Disclosure Act are inadequate and outdated for the level of organized criminality we now face. Secondly, we urge the establishment of specialized investigative units within SAPS and NPA dedicated exclusively to crimes against whistleblowers and anti-corruption officials. These should report directly to Parliament to ensure accountability and transparency in their operations. Thirdly, the government must fast-track reforms to close loopholes in procurement and political funding, because financial crimes thrive in secrecy and whistleblowers die trying to expose that darkness. Honorable Chairperson, we cannot build a developmental state upon the graves of those who tried to cleanse it. If we truly honor our constitution, we must guarantee that exposing corruption does not become a death sentence. The IFP therefore supports urgent, coordinated national action to protect the defenders of accountability, for they are the guardians of our democracy. Let us act now, decisively, courageously, and in memory of those who spoke truth to power and paid the ultimate price. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Hadebe. The next speaker will be from the Patriotic Alliance. That will be Honorable Basson. Honorable Basson, you may take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, honourable members, as a country that continues to struggle in its fight against corruption, it is both sad and deeply disheartening that those who are brave enough to speak up, speak out, and do the right thing often pays the highest price. These are the individuals who choose integrity over silence, who came forward to expose corruption and financial crimes that rob our nation of progress. Yet, instead of being protected and celebrated, they are silenced, threatened, and in some cases, killed. The tragic example of Papito de Karan, the former chief official officer in the Gauteng Department of Health, stands as a painful reminder of this reality. She had the courage to flag corruption long before the Tembisa Hospital scandal came to light, and for this, she paid with her life. Honourable members, that was only one story that reached our headlines. But what about the many other cases across state-owned institutions and entities where corruption continues to thrive in the shadows? How many whistleblowers have suffered in silence out of fear because they know that speaking out can cost them everything? If we as a government cannot guarantee the safety and protection of whistleblowers, we are effectively enabling corruption to continue unchecked. Fear will silence truth, and without truth, there will be no accountability. We need a proper, effective solution, one that strengthens the legal, physical protection of our whistleblowers, ensures swift protection and corruption cases, and restore trust in our public system. Let us not allow the sacrifices of people like Papita to be in vain. Let us act with urgency and courage, the same courage she showed to a blind country where integrity is missing. Let us bring back what is right. I salute you, Papita. I salute you, whistleblower. I salute you for being strong, for bringing courage and hope back to our nation. As a patriotic alliance, we will always stand for the whistleblower, the one that does the right thing, to ensure the people of this country will move forward. Ons baie. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Can I check if the speaker from the Freedom Front Plus is on the platform? Freedom Front Plus? If not, we'll move on to Action SA. Honourable Beasley, you may have the floor.
Thank you, House Chair. Here are two sad facts about our country. Firstly, South Africa is one of the most violent nations in the world, with an average of more than 70 murders a day. We rank among the top 5 most dangerous countries globally. Secondly, we are among the most corrupt, with little meaningful effort undertaken to confront the large-scale corruption that undermines our democracy. When these two realities combine, it becomes painfully clear that those who expose corruption face enormous personal risk, and the numbers show this. The Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime recorded nearly 2,000 assassination cases in South Africa between 2000 and 2021, with whistleblowers amongst the most often targeted. But behind these numbers are real lives that have been stolen and real families who continue to grieve the brutal murder of their loved ones. Amongst those lives who were taken for exposing corruption are Maruma Pena, assassinated in October 2022 after exposing a 200 million tender fraud scheme within the Department of Home Affairs. Colonel Matiba of the South African Police Service, shot in the head and killed by assassins while driving in August 2023. Babita Dekaram, murdered in August 2021 for reporting corruption at the Gauteng Department of Health, where she served as chief accountant. And Mpofo Mafoli, head of forensic audits for the city of Ekurhuleni, he was ambushed and killed earlier this year whilst investigating major revenue shortfalls. These are but a few examples of the lives cut short for standing up against the evils of corruption. These stories highlight the extraordinary dangers faced by whistleblowers in South Africa. Chairperson, as a constructive opposition party, Action SA will not stand by while whistleblowers continue to be silenced through intimidation and murder. We are taking concrete steps to ensure that their courage is honoured and protected. Firstly, we are introducing a constitutional amendment to abolish the position of deputy ministers. No one knows what deputy ministers do, including many of them, yet there are 43 of them, each with their own VIP protection. These resources could be far better used to protect whistleblowers. Secondly, we'll be tabling a private members bill to incentivize whistleblowers and enable private prosecution in corruption cases. At present, whistleblowers receive no reward for the enormous risks they take, while many corruption cases go unprosecuted due to a justice system in decline. Thirdly, we'll be calling on the public protector to investigate the failures of the presidency, National Treasury, and various accounting officers to implement the Special Investigation Unit's recommendations. Many SIU investigations stem from whistleblower efforts, yet, shockingly, only 1 out of 460 blacklisting recommendations have been implemented. Chair, in conclusion, whistleblowers are heroes. They must be treated, protected, and rewarded as such. The corruption they expose must be met with decisive action. If we fail to do so, South Africa will remain both one of the most dangerous and one of the most corrupt countries in the world. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I'm going to mention the following political parties, and just to check if they're here. ACDP, they're not on the platform. UDM, RISE, POSA, ATM. If there are no speakers, I'll continue to the next speaker, which will be the ANC, Honourable Mukena. The ANC, you may take the floor. Honourable Mukuna. Is the honourable member from the ANC on the floor?
Honourable Chairperson. Okay. Honourable Chairperson.
Yes, go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now, Honourable member. Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Honourable Chairperson, we recall all too well the tragic assassination of Babita Dikaran, who exposed her Gauteng's health system, and the forced exile of Andre de Reer and late Amand Swart, who was assassinated before he was mistaken a whistleblower. Stories reveal one truth, that we need an enhanced whistleblower protection service in the country. A 2020 study group conducted by Professor Khalid of Stellenbosch University confirms that South Africa's Protected Disclosures Act, which is a cornerstone of whistleblower protection, is outdated, narrow, and fragmented. It only shields employees against workplace reprisal and offers no physical or financial protection, and nothing for whistleblowers outside formal employment. In other words, despite the existence of the Protected Disclosures Act and other regulations, whistleblowers face harassment, demotion, kidnapping, torture, and in some instances, death. There is no central body to ensure follow-up on reports. Many disclosures simply disappear into bureaucratic silence because no duty on the receiver of a disclosure to act or report outcomes. This legal vacuum has bred fear and silence in our institution. It is important that we reflect on those observations because the Zondo Commission and the United Nations Convention Against Corruption have urged us to close these gaps by providing fiscal safety, anonymity, and protection for whistleblowers. Khalid's research highlights that whistleblowers in South Africa suffer psychological injury, dismissal, and even death, and that our legislative reform has moved at a snail pace. Section 16 of our Constitution guarantees freedom of expression, including the right to receive and impart information. Whistleblowers are exercising this constitutional right. Section 12C guarantees the right to be free from all forms of violence. Whistleblowers live in fear for making decisions on corruption and other crimes. It is also important to shift the perception of whistleblowers from the traditional pre-1994 context. South whistleblowers were branded as MPPs, a legacy of apartheid secrecy, and therefore identified and isolated from their communities and in most times persecuted. We must change this narrative. The Police Service Act, Public Service Regulation, and Ethics Codes must explicitly celebrate whistleblowing as an act of public service. Training modules in SAPS and government must include education on whistleblowers' rights, confidential ethical duty of public servants. Honorable Chair, we take the point that there is no legislation in the country that speaks directly to the protection of whistleblowers, and perhaps it is important to learn from international best practice to build a practical framework for legislative reform. There are lessons to be learned from UK proposed whistleblowing bill, the Irish 2022 Protected Disclosure Amendment Act, in that protection must extend beyond the workplace to citizens, suppliers, volunteers, and contractors. Good faith requirements should be abolished. Protection should focus on the information, not the motive. The establishment of a dedicated blowers office to receive disclosures, issue redress orders, and penalize retaliation. Fiscal protection and anonymity must be mandatory, consistent with Article 32 of United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which requires member states to protect the safety of those who report corruption. Financial rewards for disclosures, as in the US, have proven successfully. 1.2 billion in rewards have in more than 249 of recovery. They are not radical ideas. They are tested mechanisms that destroy that risk and accountability. We support the motion that South Africa needs a single comprehensive whistleblower protection act that consolidates the fragmented framework, the Protected Disclosure Act, the Witness Protection Act, and the other statutes into one cohesive. The act must provide physical, legal, and psychological support for whistleblowers. Establish safe reporting channels in every department, especially in SAPS and IT. Criminalize retaliation of obstructing and reporting. Reverse the burden of proof so that employers prove non-relation and all non-disclosure agreements that silence truth. In closing, House Chair, the fight against corruption begins with the protection of those who expose it. And the protection of whistleblowers is a mandatory duty if we are going to protect the integrity of our institutions. Thank
you, Honourable Member. I will now mention the other parties: Al-Jamaa, NCC, PAC, UAT. Good. If there are no members on the platform, I will now hand over to the Democratic Alliance. Honourable Breitenbach, you may take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. We are here to debate an issue that threatens the very fabric of our democracy, the rule of law and the safety of those who are committed to exposing corruption and financial crime. It is an issue that transcends party lines and political affiliation because it speaks to the very core of what it means to live in a society governed by fairness, justice and accountability. It speaks directly to all South Africans, as there are no longer any amongst us who have not been touched by violent crime and corruption. It is now endemic. Today we debate the increasingly alarming phenomenon of killing persons who expose corruption. Damn it now. Just a moment, sorry. These are not simply tragic and random incidents. They are planned assaults on the right of every citizen in this country to live in a just, accountable, and transparent society. These are murders that send a chilling message to all those who dare to speak truth to power, to challenge the status quo, all those who are courageous enough to expose the corruption that continues to ravage our country. Without their courage and dedication, many of the most significant financial scandals in South Africa, those related to state capture and large-scale corruption in both state-owned enterprises and private sector companies, would have remained hidden from public scrutiny. These courageous individuals continue to risk their lives to ensure that the truth is exposed. However, they face increasing threats to their lives. The recent killings of Babita Deokaran, Aman Swart, Bo van Niekerk, Sizwe, and the Kluter and Thomas Murray father and son remind us of the very real dangers faced by those who expose corruption in our financial systems. Babita Deokaran, a whistleblower in the Gauteng Health Department, was gunned down outside her home after exposing fraudulent practices and the massive fraud perpetrated at the Tembisa Hospital. She paid the ultimate price for her commitment to integrity and accountability, and to date, the masterminds behind that murder remain undetected and unpunished. The alleged main benefactor of this blatant criminality puts his wealth on display for all to see, openly cuddled by senior politicians. The fact is that in many cases, the perpetrators of these acts remain unidentified and unpunished. A culture of impunity has taken root, wherein those who kill whistleblowers know that there is only a very slim chance of facing real consequences. This culture of impunity is not only a crime against the victims and their families, but it also undermines our collective efforts to fight financial crime and corruption. Currently, the game is certainly worth the candle. We live in a mafia state, and maintaining the rule of law has never been more crucial. In order to defeat this insidious culture of impunity, we must confront the pervasive sense of lawlessness that has crept into our society. South Africa has been affected on all levels of society. The systemic corruption not only siphons off public resources meant for development, healthcare, education, and infrastructure, but it also entrenches inequality and perpetuates social divisions. While we pay only lip service to combating crime in general and corruption and organized crime in particular, we will never win this war. The criminal justice system remains starved of resources, both human and financial. We are currently hearing on a daily basis evidence of infiltration of the police and the greater criminal justice system. None of these revelations is news. This has been going on for decades, and there has been no political will to fight it. Annually, the budgets of the criminal justice cluster is cut, making it impossible to keep up with criminal syndicates on any level, more especially with regards to technology. Our law enforcement agencies are constantly forced to bring a knife to a gunfight, and this while criminals and those on their payroll get ostentatiously wealthier and more brazen. They are so secure in the knowledge that they will be protected and not get caught, that they make no attempt at all to hide their wealth, putting their criminality on display for everyone to see. The sick state of affairs has got to end now. Honourable Speaker, in order to protect those who risk their lives to expose financial crimes, we need a multi-pronged approach to address both the immediate threats they face and the systemic factors that fuel these threats. We must strengthen the Protected Disclosures Act to ensure that whistleblowers are not only protected in the workplace, but are afforded comprehensive protection by the state. This must include the establishment of a comprehensive whistleblower protection program that ensures individuals who expose corruption, financial crime, and maladministration are provided with robust security, legal aid, and confidentiality. We need to relook at how the Cora Fund operates and include rewards where significant asset forfeiture follows upon successful prosecutions for whistleblowers and others who provide vital information and evidence. The police must treat these cases with the utmost urgency, and they are not merely criminal acts, but assault on the democratic process. Specific expertise is required in order to successfully investigate such crimes and should be centralized in one independent anti-corruption unit. The entire criminal justice system must be recalibrated. We must seize this opportunity to rid ourselves of the rot, and it must be done urgently and mercilessly. Finally, we need to acknowledge that killing of whistleblowers and anti-corruption activists are a symptom of the wider corruption problem in South Africa. If we are to effectively protect those who expose financial crimes, we must take bolder steps to root out corruption at all levels of government and business. This requires a holistic approach to governance that includes stronger law enforcement, effective judicial oversight, and public accountability. It is imperative that we create a more transparent and accountable political system where financial crime is swiftly detected and punished, and those who are complicit are held to account. Honourable Speaker, we must pass laws that shield whistleblowers and informers from harm, create a system of accountability that punishes those who silence them, and cultivate a society where truth, transparency, and justice can flourish. It is no easy task to accomplish a corruption-free society, nor is it always easy to uphold the rule of law. If we do not do it and do it now, we are going very soon to live in a society where the person with the biggest gun determines the law and who lives and who dies. The time to deal with corruption is now, and it's not a fight for the faint-hearted. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The final speaker for today will be from the ANC, Honourable Moela. Honourable Moela, you may take the floor. Thank you. Honourable Moela, are you there? From the ANC?
Thank you very much, the Honourable Chairperson, honourable members. We have heard in this house today many names of many people who have lost their lives in the fight against crime. May their revolutionary soul rest in peace. The NACAC recommendations from Minister Kachalia: whistleblowers are indeed indispensable in the fight against crime and must be protected at all costs. It gives me much hope to hear that members of this Honourable House share the same sentiments when it comes to the reforms needed to enhance the protection against whistleblowers. Honourable members, Honorable Cameron makes an important observation on the language of corruption to say we are perhaps measuring the incorrect things, or our measuring standard do not bring us closer to that which we desire to know and uncover. The only correction is to coordinate all the institutions working in the criminal justice system, where we can compel the SIU to speed up the investigation and the NPA to carry out its precautionary mandate. Today, our systems is fragmented, honorable members, scattered across the Protected Disclosure Act, the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, the Witness Protection Act, and others such as which serves as a purpose, yes, but together they form a patchwork that leave dangerous gaps. A unified framework will close legislative loopholes that we encounter, ensuring protection from the most disclosure is made, provide psychological, legal, and financial support for whistleblowers who risk everything to defend integrity of this country. We want to establish a central agency or coordination mechanism to oversee whistleblower cases, ensuring consistency, rapid response, and accountability. We want to strengthen collaboration between law enforcement, Chapter 9 institutions, and the public service so that disclosures lead to real consequences for those who engage in these criminal elements of ensuring that they silence those who come out and expose the corruption that is happening in the public service and in the more institutions of government. As the ANC, Honorable Chair, we have measures that we have put in place to deal with corruption, such as strengthening agencies. Through these amendment acts that we have put in place, we'll want to ensure that civil societies and everyone who comes out to expose people who are involved in criminal activities as whistleblowers are protected and their lives remain protected, that lives of their family and everyone who comes out as a public servant who expose the criminal element that are happening. So, honorable members, it is correct that all of us need to see reforms that will be intense and protect our people who come out and protect those who are involved in exposing the criminal elements. As I thank you, honorable members. Thank you very much for engaging in this debate. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Moela, and thank you to all the speakers for participating in the debate today. That concludes the debate and the business of this virtual mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary will now rise. Thank you.